Right. Thank you for joining the meeting. First, we had a closed session item, and we have nothing to report out of the closed session. Good evening, and thank you for viewing the October 21st regular meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a teleconference in response to local efforts to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 virus. We want to thank the community and encourage everyone to keep up the efforts to slow the spread of COVID-19 in Arcata. We know that by wearing masks and practicing social distancing has helped keep our curve flat, our community healthy, and businesses open. Please support safe shopping by masking up in Arcata. If you wish to make a public comment during the meeting, either at the two open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are two ways to do so. One, if you are logged onto the Zoom meeting webinar, click on the raise your hand on the right-hand side of your screen. When it is time for public comment on the item on which you wish to speak, the clerk will unmute you. You will have 2 minutes to comment. A second way of doing this, you can access the meeting by phone. Call the number at the bottom of the screen. Enter the meeting ID also at the bottom of the screen. Press *9 on your phone. This will raise your hand. When it is time for public comment on the item on which you wish to speak, the clerk will unmute your phone. You will hear a prompt that will indicate your phone is unmuted. You will have 2 minutes to comment. First is flag salute. If you would like to join me, please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Winkler?
Here.
Vice Mayor Pitino?
Here.
Councilmember Pereira?
Here.
Councilmember Watson?
Here.
All present.
First is ceremonial matters. First is a certificate of appreciation for Jane Woodward for her 12 years of service on the Economic Development Committee, and this will be read by Councilmember Watson.
Whereas Jane Woodward volunteered to serve on the city's Economic Development Committee on September 3rd, 2008, and has been dedicated to improving Arcata's business community ever since. And whereas over these many years of service, Jane contributed to several efforts of the committee and the city, including reviewing the business loan program guideline changes, recommendations for Valley West revitalization, approval of the 2010 to 2014 Economic Development Strategic Plan, development of partner contracts with Arcata Chamber of Commerce, Arcata Main Street, and the Humboldt Del Norte Film Commission, and most recently, the review of the sixth cycle housing element. And whereas Jane served on several subcommittees, including the Business of the Year nomination subcommittee, and whereas Jane served as the Economic Development Committee Chair from July 2019 through September 2020, and whereas Jane volunteered to represent the committee on the Plaza Improvement Task Force, and whereas Jane was known for her creativity, spontaneity, tenacity, and thoughtfulness supporting businesses and economic development ideas throughout the city. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby expresses its appreciation to Jane Woodward for serving the people of Arcata for 12 years and wishes her well in all her future endeavors. Dated today, October 21st, 2020, and signed by our Mayor, Michael Winkler.
And Jane,
next is
available.
Yes,
Accept it.
accepted. Thank you very much. It's been my pleasure, and I'm sure I'll try to harass you on things in the future. I also harassed the city about the village, and everybody was very responsive in that effort, and I think it's a good thing it actually didn't happen because of what has happened to enrollment, etc. I hope we can find a project that will serve the community in terms of housing for that site sometime in the future, because we certainly do need more housing and we have many other economic development needs. So I hope to continue to work with the community as various topics come up, and we have a number of ideas that have been presented to the Economic Development Committee, and I look forward to seeing them run with it. Thank you very much for having the opportunity to work with you over all these years.
Thanks so much, Jane.
Thanks, Jane, and your input is always welcome.
Thank you. You'll probably get it.
Next is proclamation recognizing World Polio Day, October 24th, 2020. Whereas the goal of Rotary International's World Polio Day is to create awareness and educate the residents of Arcata about the vital importance of eradicating polio worldwide. And whereas Rotary International is a 115-year-old organization whose members are business, professional, and community leaders. Rotary Club of Arcata Sunrise is one of 35,000 Rotary clubs worldwide sponsoring service projects to address such critical issues as poverty, disease, hunger, illiteracy, and the environment in local communities and abroad. And whereas in 1985, Rotary launched Polio Plus, in 1988, helped establish the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, which today includes the World Health Organization, U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, UNICEF, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, to immunize the children of the world against polio. And whereas polio cases have dropped by 99.9% since 1988, and the world stands on the threshold of eradicating the disease. And whereas to date, Rotary clubs have contributed $2.1 billion in countless volunteer hours to help more than 2.5 billion children in 122 countries. Rotary is working to raise an additional $50 million per year, which would be leveraged for maximum impact by an additional $100 million annually from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata recognizes October 24th, 2020 as World Polio Day and invites the residents of Arcata to support Rotary's goal of creating a polio-free world, dated today, October 21st, 2020, and signed by myself as mayor. Next is early oral communications. This 15-minute time period is provided for people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Any request that requires council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers addressing the council at this time are limited to 2 minutes, and we will take up to 7 speakers. Please raise your hand if you are on Zoom, or press *9 if you are calling by phone and wish to make a comment. Do we have any members of the public who would like to comment at this time?
We do not have any public comment at this time.
I will close early oral communications. Next is consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. A, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of September 16th, 2020. B, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of September 30th, 2020. C, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of October 7th, 2020. D, bi-weekly report on general warrants. E, declare a continuation of the local emergency related to the coronavirus pandemic. F, adopt resolution number 201-15, stating the intent to reimburse expenditures by the State Water Resources Control Board made in support of the city's wastewater treatment plant improvements. And resolution number 201-16, authorizing the city manager to file a financial assistance application with the State Water Resources Control Board to fund the city's wastewater treatment plant improvements. G, reject all bids for the 2020 manhole rehabilitation project and rebid the project. H, approve an amended and restated sewer service agreement between the City of Arcata and the Fieldbrook Glendale Community Services District, and authorize the city manager to sign all applicable documents. I, adopt resolution number 201-18, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata approving an application for funding and the execution of a grant agreement and any amendments thereto from the 2020 Community Development Block Grant Program, Coronavirus Response Round 1, CDBG-CV1, NOFA, dated June 5th, 2020. Is there any member of the council that would like to remove an item?
No.
Is there any member of the public or staff that requests that an item be removed from the consent calendar?
There is no one from the public.
May I have a motion on the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Watson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pereira.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pitino,
Aye.
and I vote aye, and the motion passes. Next is item A, old business, financial forecast of adopted budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. May I have a staff report, please, from City Manager Deemer?
Sorry about that. Did not want to unmute me. So there is a lot of detail again in your packets, but at these first initial few months, I'm just going to go through sort of the highlights of where we forecasted our budget to be at this point and how our major revenues are coming in as we move forward. So areas right now, so this is our third month that we've been reviewing our fiscal forecasting here at the City of Arcata, and our current concerns are that unemployment continues to be really at an all-time high. We are making small improvements. We were at, I think, 10.3 for the month of July. We're down to 9.7 for August. But that's still 150% higher unemployment than this time in 2019. So we're still really at unprecedentedly high numbers. Many of you recall that in some of the first stimulus monies that were passed by the federal government, unemployment, those that had lost their jobs due to COVID-19, there was an extra $600 a week that was supplied by federal stimulus for unemployment benefits. That ended at the end of July, on July 31st. The federal government has come forward with a $300 per week additional unemployment stimulus, and that has been instituted here in California, at least as of October. I don't know if there was back pay for those months for the month of August and parts of September, but it is established and up and running now. The other significant change this month was that Humboldt County status was lowered to what they call minimal Tier 4. This reopened bars, expanded use of restaurants and gyms. So most of our retail and restaurant has the ability to open to some degree, but still we're not at full openings for any of those. Our hotels are full. So from a financial standpoint, that is positive, but many of those hotel fills could be long-term rentals, especially fire evacuees right now. And if those stays go beyond 30 days, which is of course necessary and needed and we want to support, but we definitely could see a reduction in hotel tax. If people stay more than 30 days in hotels, then it becomes a long-term stay and it's not subject to our TOT tax. But things that are reassurances to us right now is that the hotel tax is remaining high. Our occupancy in hotels is high. And our sales tax and our transaction and use tax are so far, they're coming in at or above projections. So to take you through, and this is on your packet, page 146, this is just a table that you're going to be really familiar with by the end of the year. But what you'll see is we have actuals for the first time this month that reflect the month of July. So our actual sales tax that has come in cash to date for the month of July, which should be a completely reporting month now for us, was $221,000. That is actually up a little bit from the same month of July of 2019-20, or the year 2019. So the reason for this is in part because we did have deferred taxes from prior quarters because of COVID that were paid in this particular month and at the end of that quarter for us. But it is still a good sign that we are coming in pretty close to where we were last year, and then a little bit higher with those deferred payments. You're going to see the same trend for our transaction and use tax. For our final numbers, did that go forward? Our final numbers for July came in at just about 204,000. The same reporting period last year was 174,000. So we are a little bit exceeding our last year's number. Remember, we actually estimated 30% below for both transaction and use tax and for sales tax. So far for the one full reporting month, we are at or above our previous fiscal year's totals. But again, quite a bit of that was deferred sales tax that has just come in late. On our TOT, or our bed tax, our hotel tax, it's still a little too early to tell. We do have some hotels that pay us each month. So that's why you see actual dollars coming in for July and August. But the big quarterly end will come in, sometime by the end of this month in October. So this next month, we should see this full quarter round out and will give us a much better sense of the reporting dollars from our transient occupancy tax, our TOT tax. But you will see we are down slightly in each of those. Some of that could be deferred and may all come in the end of October, beginning of November, and some of it may not. So it's, again, a little early to tell. There were a few additional questions from August. We did go through these back in September, but on the later missing payments, I thought we would just start to track that. So we do know we had at least 194,000 in late or deferred payments from programs that the state offered to defer payer sales tax due to COVID-19. And in July, we received 53,000 of that deferred payment. So there still is more out there. Some of those businesses could close and we may never collect on that. And some of that might continue to come in the months ahead. We will have updated Wayfair tax revenues. This was a question that the mayor asked. This is the same answer we supplied in September, though. For quarter two, the total for that was $27,947, and we should be able to update that next month as that quarter closes out. Water and sewer revenue is also something that we've been tracking in detail, and we have seen some trends downward. We also saw downward trends for the month of September in both water or sewer to the degree, not as much as we saw that first month of July. And then as you'll recall, August came up quite a bit, but September is reduced even from August. So this is an area that we will continue to track. We did anticipate some reduction in water and sewer as a result of COVID-19, in part just reduced consumption from restaurants and business use, and then in part the inability to pay and the inability to collect on some of that. So right now, water, even though we're seeing differences between last fiscal year, water is tracking exactly where we had expected and had budgeted for. Wastewater is about 2 to 3% lower than where we had budgeted and forecasted for, even though it is, it is down greater than that in actual numbers. From where we budgeted this year, we are at this point only off about 2%. I did take a closer look at where HSU falls in that. And overall, HSU between water and sewer is, I'll say 6.5%. I think water is 6%, wastewater is 7%. They are causing about a 6.5% decline in both water and wastewater for us, just having only a partially open campus and very few classes face to face. So that is a significant contributor to our water and sewer. But so our current outlook at this point is still too early to assess. Revenues that come in quarterly, while we're still just receiving those reports and those dollars for the first quarter of the fiscal year. But our initial indications still show that we're tracking at reduced revenues, but we are at or above what we projected and forecasted. So similar next month, actually December will be the big month where we will see kind of rounding out that full first quarter and then be able to look a little bit more deeply at some of the other revenues. But so far we are on track anyway, is what we will report. We're going to remain hopefully optimistic, but also really cautiously tracking each of our revenues and expenditures. So I will open for any questions that the council has.
Vice Mayor Pitino?
No question at this time. Thanks.
Councilmember Watson?
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks for all your work on it.
Councilmember Pereira?
Nothing to add. Thank you.
So Karen, you said that you're going to have more solid information. You're expecting it will come in December?
Yeah, we will bring another update to you in November, but really quite a, it'll be a more complete picture for your update in December.
Right. Since water and wastewater are enterprise funds and there are deficits, could you briefly describe how deficits are handled?
Yeah, so as an enterprise fund, it's kind of a closed loop. So the revenues that come in have to support the activities associated with the water activities or associated with the wastewater system. So we'll look at those each individually. We did, as I said, we did forecast and we did make expense reductions in both water and sewer going into this fiscal year. So right now it appears as though water is right on track to meet our fiscal forecasting, even though we do have reduced revenues from the previous year. And wastewater is the area that we're going to have to watch. Now, again, at 2 or 3%, that enterprise can buffer that type of loss for a 1-year period. But we will look at each of our projects and we will look at overall operational costs and see if we can make any additional reductions moving through the year to try to make sure that we end in that positive balance. We have been saving substantial funds associated with the rehabilitation project, which you're receiving a report on later this evening. So we really are concerned about tracking those revenues, but certainly plan, even with the reductions that we're seeing right now, we will end the fiscal year adding to the reserve because those funds are going towards project cost over the next 5 years.
At what level of reserves were we for the two funds? Can we separate out independent of the long-term set-asides for rebuild?
We can do that, and that is something that we could certainly have a discussion on at mid-year. When you adopted the rate structure, Bartle Wells study pulled out, and so we could pull that. We can bring that chart back next month if you would like to see it again. But really did pull out, what portion of the rate and would be saved over time associated with both project costs and with debt service. And so right now with where we at in projections, we don't need to make any changes to that schedule, but we'll just continue to monitor that.
Because what I'm interested in is tracking how we're doing it, outside of the rebuild, just to understand if there are any changes that we need to make. And you're saying that for the time being, we don't need to, but in the long term, we should be tracking that.
We should continue to track that. Yeah. Through the duration of the project, really, but certainly through the duration of this fiscal year. Although the department, in truth, those are funds that the department tracks every month, every year. So, because they are such a closed loop and there is only one really main department that's spending out of those. So it's easier to track that way.
I'm going to ask for public comment, but I just, as a reminder, If you are logged onto onto Zoom, click raise your hand on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you are called in via phone, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. When it is your turn to speak, the clerk will unmute you and invite you to speak. You will have 2 minutes to speak. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this item?
A reminder, this is public comment for the item financial forecast of adopted budget for fiscal year 2020-21. We do have somebody, just a moment. Hey, Jane, if you could please go ahead.
Hi there. I haven't disappeared yet, so I just thought I'd say it's very helpful to have that kind of update, and it was very nicely done. Still doesn't give me a real good idea of what we expect to come in the future and what the implications are for our staffing, and what additional changes we may need to make in the next quarter, for example, depending on how the TUT, TOT, et cetera, come forth. So I was just kind of curious if anybody wanted to address that.
All right, do we have any other comments from the public at this time?
No further public comments.
Go ahead and if you would comment on what the member of the public said.
Sure. Yeah. No, I really appreciate the comment, and would be happy to even meet and go through that in a little bit more detail. So what we have projected right now was a 30% reduction in sales tax, a 30% reduction in transaction and use tax, and a 38% reduction in our bed tax or our TOT tax. So as we have been monitoring these monthly, what we're looking for, and our budget is based on that substantially reduced amount. So we have a number of positions that are frozen, a number of part-time positions that have been laid off and that haven't been rehired for the season to accommodate a much reduced budget. As the council and the community, and we have talked over the last 3 months, I think it is going to be very difficult for me to make any recommendations on bringing back any of those frozen positions until we're really probably looking at next fiscal year. So right now, what we're seeing in the trends is that our sales tax and our TUT tax is coming in at, or quite frankly, at this point, above where our forecasted projections were. But it's just too early to have a confidence in those numbers to be able to bring back additional positions that we have already frozen this year. I don't at this point see that we are going to have the need to make further reduced cuts in our staffing. We do have an additional 4 individuals that have taken the city up on an early retirement incentive program that will be leaving by the end of this calendar year. And so those positions were ones that we will delay hiring. We will refill them more slowly and have some additional cost savings in both our utility funds and in our general fund. But at this point, we do anticipate coming in this fiscal year on budget, and then just starting to forecast and trend for the following fiscal year when the council starts to set goals in February. And so I don't know if that exactly answers your question. If it doesn't, Jane, I'll expect a call from you later this week and be happy to go through it with you.
Director Starshevsky, do you have any additional comments to make?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
All right. I will ask for comments from council. Vice Mayor Pitino?
No comment this time, thanks.
Councilmember Watson?
No comment.
Councilmember Pereira?
No, thank you to our staff.
And I have no further comments. That this is very much in line with what I was looking for and in terms of budget tracking, and I appreciate all the work of staff on this, and it's very valuable for us to be able to serve the public and manage the finances of the city responsibly. Right. Next is new business. Appoint 1 member to the Transportation Safety Committee for a term ending either March 31st, 2021 or March 31st, 2023. and one member of the Public Safety Committee for a term ending September 30th, 2024. Is there a council member who would like to make a motion or would like to make a comment on this?
Yeah, it didn't seem like we had the discussion we normally have on these. For me, for the Public Safety Committee, I'd like to appoint David Pate. So I just want to throw that out there. And I'm happy with our interview today with Raquel. So I'd be happy to go with her as well.
I'll second those.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I will do a roll call. Councilmember Pereira,
Aye.
Councilmember Watson,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Patino,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Next is,
Excuse me, Mayor, could you do one more motion to determine the term for the Transportation Safety Committee appointment?
right, so either the maker of the original motion or someone else who would like to make a motion to clarify the
Yeah,
term.
well, let's just quickly discuss it. Does the council have any opinion on which one? I'd be happy going with the longer term.
I feel the same way. The longer term we can get. Thank you.
So then I'll make a motion to appoint Raquel Manano to Transportation Safety Committee for a term ending March 31st, 2023.
Second.
Did you,
We have a motion and a second, Vice Mayor Patino. Or also, do we have any public comment on this?
We do not have any public comment.
Did you have a comment, Karen?
no, perfect motion, thank you.
Vice Mayor Patino,
Oops. Aye.
Councilmember Pereira,
Aye.
Councilmember Watson.
Aye.
I vote aye, so the motion passes. Next is new business item B, public hearing to adopt resolution number 201-19, authorizing a brownfield cleanup grant application for the Little Lake property. May I have a
Say,
staff
Mike.
report?
Michael, before you start, I think I'll have to recuse myself on this because I'm within 250 feet of the project. I'm not sure how you recuse yourself on Zoom. Do I get to go
Well,
home?
You can observe, but you just need to turn off your audio, is my understanding.
Audio and video, so the public can't watch your facial expressions as a means of communicating your approval or disapproval.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Going ahead with the brownfield item, may I have a staff report, please, from Deputy Director Dart?
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. The item before you tonight is a public hearing to receive public comment on the proposal for cleanup of the Little Lakes Industries site and a request for authorization for submittal of an application for funding from the 2021 Environmental Protection Agency Brownfield Cleanup Grant. As you all are aware, in 2017, the city received funding from the Environmental Protection Agency for an assessment grant, which provided funding for the assessment and remedial planning for brownfield parcels in the city, one of which was the city-owned former Little Lake Industries site, which is down near the Marsh off Samoa. This resulted in a draft site cleanup plan, which will be reviewed by the Water Board and EPA. And the site cleanup plan identified excavation and offsite disposal of dioxin impacted soils at the former kiln structure area as the best method of cleanup for the site. As you'll see in the application narrative, which is page 173 of your packet, It's estimated that approximately 460 cubic yards of material will need to be removed during the excavation for the cleanup. The excavated soil would then be sampled to determine whether additional soil excavation would be needed to achieve the cleanup goal for residential standards. The estimated cost for implementation of the site cleanup plan is approximately $300,000, of which the city would be responsible for 20% of this, or $60,000. The EPA is flexible with how this match can be achieved, so there's lots of different ways that we can attain that match. It's not necessarily a cash match. It can be staff time and many other ways that we can do that, and those don't need to be identified at the application, at the onset of application, so we can identify those going forward. Once the site is remediated, the city can then begin the redevelopment phase of the Little Lake property with a focus on job creation, recreational amenities, and habitat restoration. I believe Director Loya had some additional things regarding this site and the application that you wanted to go over. David, if I can hand it over to you.
Thank you, Deputy Director Dart. I just had a couple of points that I wanted to make for the council before you take action on this. If you look at your packet, page 158, starts the 14 pages summary of environmental assessment work that's been done on this property over the last 20 years. And this is a really exciting time because this is sort of the penultimate step in bringing this site to closure so that it can actually be developed. So that's one thing I wanted to bring to your attention. It's a really, after you look through all of these tables and all of these numbers and all of the test results that we have, we're finally at the end. And I also, even though this work dates back to 2002 as our first assessment, I just wanted to draw attention to the great work that Deputy Director Dart has done to manage these assessment grants and the cleanup grants. Without her, focused attention on getting these applications in, doing all the legwork that's necessary to report on these, keeping the contractor and myself in line to make sure that we're giving her what she needs to get these reports in, we would still be looking at the site in the same condition it was in. So just wanted to take a moment to recognize her excellence on this project. So we are hoping that you will adopt the resolution and authorize the application submittal. We'd be happy to take any questions or accept public comment.
All right. I will now ask for questions from council, starting with Vice Mayor Pitino.
He's recused from this item. He will not be asking questions. Sorry.
Right. Right. My mistake. Okay. So next is Councilmember Watson.
No, I don't have any questions. Thanks for staff's work on this.
Councilmember Pereira.
No questions. I'm happy to make a motion, or I can wait until after public comment.
Your choice.
Okay, well, I'll just put a motion out there. I move to adopt resolution number 201-19, authorizing submission of the city's grant application for $300,000 in hazardous materials remediation funding to the US EPA for cleanup of the Little Lake industry site, and authorize a 20% cost share of $60,000 from the city in the form of cash match and staff time.
Second.
Right. We have a motion, a second. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We do have public comment on this item. The first speaker is a phone with the last digits 3678. You could please go ahead and speak. Can you try again?
You're still muted, speaker.
There we go.
Hello?
There you go. You're on.
Hi, this is Jennifer Calt with Humboldt Baykeeper, and I'm just calling in support of the grant. And I think, as many of you know, this has been a really long time coming, and we're just thrilled that this is moving forward. And want to thank staff for being so proactive and working with us to get input, and we look forward to continuing to work with you all to clean this property up. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who want to comment on this item?
We do.
Hi there. Since I'm here in any event, I want to commend staff and Jen, who I've worked with in particular, for all the hard work they've done and persisting with this for years. And I want to commend Brett, by the way, for his wonderful article in the My Word in the Times Standard, because I think all of us need to be prompted to contribute to the city by way of public comment, and commend the staff for everything you're doing, as well as obviously council members, because I know you work very, very hard. And with less staff available, I think you're doing a fantastic job. Well done.
Thank you. Is there additional members of the public who want to comment on this item?
There's no further public comment on this item.
Right, we have any final comments from council?
I don't have any comments.
Right, we have a motion and a second. Councilmember Watson,
Aye.
Councilmember Pereira.
Aye.
And I vote aye. It passes. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, other members of staff. Long time in coming, a lot of hard work. Next is item C, adopt urgency ordinance number 1537, an urgency ordinance of the City Council of the City of Arcata, establishing a cap on delivery service commissions, charges, and fees during the COVID-19 pandemic emergency. May I have a staff report, please, from Director Loya?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Again, as you just mentioned, the action that you're about to take tonight, if you so choose, is to adopt this urgency ordinance that would effectively limit the amounts that Uber, DoorDash, and other third-party delivery services could charge to businesses for that service. Right now, we're in a situation where markets are captive. There are a lot of people who are relying on these delivery services that can't get out to the restaurants themselves, and the restaurants don't have the bargaining power to be able to set those rates. And at the same time, they are also captive. They have to provide those delivery options to their customers in order to be relevant in today's market. And so what this urgency ordinance will do would be to lessen the blow of that the fee that can be charged from what many people are saying is 30% or more right now to only 15%. The third-party delivery services would still be able to, charge, taxes or tips on top of this, but they'd have to turn over anything that they get above 15% in terms of their fees to the restaurants themselves. Many restaurateurs that I've spoken with have mentioned that this is a significant burden for them, that they're not making any money and in some cases losing money per order, but they feel like they have to provide through these services their goods. And so this is an important ordinance for stabilizing and maintaining the businesses, the small businesses, restaurants, which are hard enough to run without a pandemic. In the ordinance itself, there are several findings that connect the dots between these economic factors, the pandemic, and the necessary public purpose and health and safety. Findings that need to be made in order to adopt an urgency ordinance. And we can pick those apart if you'd like to, piece by piece. But I just wanted to keep it real high level right now in case you have specific questions that we can address those. I also wanted to point out that the ordinance does have some administrative enforcement remedies, and the city manager may have more to talk about on that point, as well as the regulation section, which is sort of the meat of how this ordinance would regulate those fees. And then I guess the last thing I wanted to mention before we close is my staff report is that The title that's on the agenda is what the title should read in the ordinance. And so I'd appreciate it if in your motion you take the exact language from the staff report and we'll amend that into the actual ordinance itself. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about the staff report, written or oral. And unless the city manager has something she wanted to add about the ordinance.
No, I appreciate that. As long as, I mean, the council and the community know that, you know, while we're in this COVID period and restaurants are not allowed to open back up to full seating, you know, there is some certain legal grounds associated with this, but this is not going to be an ordinance that we can impose in perpetuity here in Arcata. Once all of the COVID restrictions are lifted and, you know, that sort of health and safety concern around food and food delivery is minimized, then, you know, this ordinance will have to sunset at that point. And if I didn't capture that right, our city attorney will jump on. But it will give businesses, I think, and we have had requests from a couple of restaurants that would really like the opportunity to try to establish a little different relationship with some of these delivery services now, and this would give them that opportunity. Nancy?
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I think you explained it perfectly. The basis for being able to impose the fee cap now is the public emergency that we're in, and as the restaurants begin to open up, they may not have the same impact on their own businesses. We'll watch that as this develops over the next few months.
I will now ask for questions from council, starting with Councilmember Watson.
No, I don't have any questions. It sounds good to me. I'm ready to make a motion.
You can go ahead now if you want to.
I'll move to adopt urgency ordinance number 1537, an urgency ordinance to the City Council of the City of Arcata, establishing a cap on delivery service commissions, charges, and fees during the COVID-19 pandemic emergency. Waive reading of the text and consent to read by title only.
Continuing with questions, any questions, Councilmember Pereira?
No, I'll second the motion.
Right. Any questions from Vice Mayor Pitino?
No questions. Thank you.
Let's see, are there any members of the public who indicate that they want to comment on this item?
Reminder, if you want to comment on the item on the urgency ordinance to cap delivery service commissions, to raise your hand on the right hand of your screen. We do not have any public comment for this item.
We have a motion and a second. Vice Mayor Pitino?
Aye.
Councilmember Pereira?
Aye.
Councilmember Watson?
Aye.
I vote aye, so the motion passes.
Thank you.
Right, next is oral and written communications. This time is provided for people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. Please raise your hand if you are on Zoom, on the Zoom webinar, or press *9 now if you are on the phone line and you would like to make a public comment. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. When it is your time for public comment, the clerk will unmute you and invite you to speak. Do we have any comments at this time from the public?
We do. Jane, if you could please go ahead.
Sure. I've been thinking about this for a while, and we have Business of the Year awards every year that we give out. And I want to propose that we should consider having a Public Citizen of the Year award. Maybe not through the EDC. I don't know how we'd do this and manage it, but people like Maggie Gaynor, who have done incredible things for this community through Zero Waste Humboldt, getting it institutionalized not only in our city, but in Eureka and elsewhere, and is currently now working very hard for the Bayview Community Center, right? Is that what it's called now? Anyway, I think that's a wonderful idea where we could recognize people who have made major contributions to the city they are economic, so it could be in the EDC. But and then I have a neighbor, Judy Snyder, who's been responsible for getting CERT going for the next door community communication network being widespread here. We have people that are making amazing contributions, and I just want to throw that idea out as a way the city can recognize individuals who are making major contributions privately. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who've indicated that they want to make a comment at this time?
There is no more public comment.
I will close oral and written communications. And we can put that on the agenda to address the comment by Jane Woodward that something that I would be interested in having it on the agenda. Next is council and staff reports. All reports shall be specifically limited to city business and shall not request or lead to an action by the council at this meeting. A, receive a design and construction update for phase 1 of the wastewater treatment plant improvements project.
Good evening, everybody. It's been a while. So I am going to share my screen now. We have a little PowerPoint, just kind of go through it briefly. You have a copy of the council staff report. And at the end of this, if there are any questions specifically over any of the items that I've addressed in the written report, we'd be glad to answer them. I'll be available for kind of the engineering technical issues. We also have Dilo Freitas and Emily Benvey, as well as Mark Andre on board, so that we can answer any kind of particular questions, some of the nuances of all the intricate pieces of the puzzle here, how it's all coming together. So with that, I'll jump over to share screen. There we go. Is that working?
Yeah, you might want to put it in slideshow mode, but either way, it's pretty big.
Slideshow mode.
You go to the right.
Yeah, slideshow. Yeah, exactly. I knew it was one of those. Thank you.
There you go.
All right. So this is just a quick update on the phase 1 of the Arcata wastewater treatment plant. You know, our consultant engineers, Carollo and GHD consultants out of Eureka. They're helping. They're doing some of the work around the ponds, more specifically. So tonight, just going to kind of go over briefly the project status regarding the design, environmental review, permitting, the UV equipment. Take a look at the project schedule in kind of a cartoon fashion, and then there is a Excel spreadsheet that we can kind of jump into some of the more particular items if you have questions. A little bit about the next steps when we anticipate the CEQA process to be done, the UV equipment request for proposals, and then any other reference or discussion questions that you may have. So at current, regarding the design and bidding status of the entire project, back in basically July, we completed the review of the 75% design of the project. At that time, we'd received some of the electrical and some of the telemetry, but we had not received any particular specifications or equipment specifications. We're waiting on those to come in. Some are supposed to be here this Friday and then through the end of the month. We did receive the initial 90% design submittal a couple weeks ago, and we had a quick update from the consultants on that, and myself and other staff members, as well as people down at the wastewater treatment plant. We're going through that stack of sheets, which is about 2.5 inches high, and getting our comments down, because this is really the last time when we make any, well, I won't even say substantive, clarification issues on the design of the plans, how everything is really going to kind of come together and link together. Once we receive the second half of the 90% comments, which would be the electrical and the telemetry issues, as well as the specifications and manufacturer's information, we're have a goal of completing all our comments back to Corolla by November 23rd, so just before the Thanksgiving break. And then Corolla will be compiling those with GHD to create a draft bid set for our final kind of sign-off city review late December into early January likely, with final bid documents. We don't anticipate much being in that last. That's just kind of a, getting a real good look through of what everything's in there that, we can, actually know in the specifications or in the bid documents how are we going to pay for that item and what is the cost estimate for that item. The final bid documents then being available in January, February of 2021, and this would basically be a nearly ready to bid set that we will, the only omission in that will be the UV system, which is on a different bidding system right now. It's using different funds, and that basically we have the ultraviolet disinfection, the ultraviolet disinfection plans will be designed in part by the chosen ultraviolet disinfection manufacturer. And once we have chosen one of those through additional RFP process, they will incorporate it into the plans somewhere around May of 21. We then anticipate working on some of the permitting issues, which I'll get to in the next slide. We're looking at a tentative period when we will be putting this out to bid sometime in August to September of 2021. We're probably going to be looking at a very an extended bid time, 60 days. It's a complicated project. There will be quite a bit of back and forth, I'm sure, on that. There will be very likely a mandatory pre-bid on this, but it will take quite a bit longer to get this out and bidded and circulated through the appropriate venues. And then as far as review of the bids and review of submittals, the contractors, we're looking at an award tentative date of November of 2021. And I'll switch this over to tie in with that's what we're basically looking at our final date to receive all our permits. And I'm going to jump to that slide right now. So as far as the environmental review and permitting, we have completed the CEQA, the initial study completion. Some figures are being placed into it right now, and it will be out for circulation on Monday. And we anticipate a circulation period up until the end of November on that. And we will be receiving comments, requesting comments all throughout that period. It'll be at the clearinghouse the 26th, and then compiling a staff report for your council to review. We will request the adoption of the CEQA, estimating that around at the second meeting in December or the first meeting in January, depending upon how many comments we have to respond to, and how substantive the comments are and how much time it takes us to address those comments. All other permitting, and it's a substantial amount, I'll kind of get over to that list, is underway with staff and with our consultants helping us on this, SHN engineering principally, and some other biological specialists. Jumping over to the state revolving fund, you did approve those resolutions tonight for that, thank you. And we did just complete the environmental portion of the state revolving fund application, and we'll be sending those off to the consulting engineers, Corolla, for their review. They have an internal specialist that looks at the state revolving fund application and looking to get their comments back by the end of the month, and then submitting the ultimate application down to the state board for their to begin their review period. We had originally anticipated only about a 6-month period on that, with some complications and the COVID and some of the intricacies of all the permits that are going to be required as part of this wastewater treatment plant upgrade project phase 1. We're looking at up to a 12-month period. So we've kind of staged everything along the line in one of the graphics I'll get to in a second, but basically looking to allow up to 12 months so that our SRF funding will be ready and available for us to be able to be bidding at the same time, to make sure that we can actually award a bid, and we know at that time that we would have the money to be able to pay the contractor as well. The California Coastal Permit application is also in progress. We're getting assistance with that as well, and we're looking at completing a submittal for our coastal development permit at the end of this month as well too. We don't have a date tentatively set until they have a chance to really review the CEQA document, the project description, and what's actually in our California Coastal Permit application. We're hoping that we'll be able to be meeting with Coastal Commission staff as soon as they're ready, basically, as soon as they've had a chance to really read the project description, really understand the permit application, how we're phasing the project. And we have had several meetings with them, none, well, I guess they're all technically official, but none that were at this level of detail with all the environmental process done, et cetera. But they have not shown any reservations for the phase 1 project yet that I have personally had any discussions with any of them on. So we're looking forward to sitting down. I think they're really looking forward to actually is getting the permit application completed, so we can start the actual discussions over what the project is and what the plans are going to be. Other permits, I already kind of mentioned those. So again, permitting approval completion, we're looking at having all the permits in place for the funding, the environmental, and as well as having a contractor that we're ready to bid the project to in December of 2021. Just a quick touch on the UV in case there were some questions on that. So we have been working on the UV equipment pre-purchase. We went through quite a discussion on the UV, where the UV was going to be placed, and what we ultimately decided is we're placing the UV into our existing chlorine contact basin. So we'll have UV and chlorine during this first phase, and we hope that we don't have to use chlorine, but we do want to have it here as a kind of a safety valve, safety measure, just in case we do need it. And we have upsized the UV disinfection system considerably. It's going to be rated for nearly 10 million gallons per day, and we're about a 1 million to 2 million gallon per day, kind of nominal plant. We're only designed, our plant is a 5 million gallon plant, so we have quite a bit of reserve capacity in there to make sure that it's going to be working really good. We're going to have a lot of power to be able to zap the bugs. Plus, we'll be able to have multiple channels. We won't always have to run all of the lamps, obviously, together. And we think it's going to be a really slick way of disinfecting and eliminating issues we've had in the past with disinfection byproducts. So the dates on that are basically is issuing an RFP December 2020, and then proposals in January. Looking at a supplier selection sometime in February, and then approving that following month, and then basically issuing a notice to proceed sometime in May, and that would kind of go back to a few slides ago. The contractor will then, as part of our bid documents, assume the acceptance of the equipment, and then a final design that will be incorporated into the bid plans that we'll have done next month, so that they'll have the equipment basically delivered here, and we will have the plans augmented to include the chosen ultraviolet disinfection system. And then that will be in our first one of the first things we jump on, as well as all of the electrical upgrades and the UV, and as well as aeration in our initial thrust to get that up and working by the March 2023 date. This is the overall project implementation schedule, and kind of goes down by final design. Most of the issues there that I've kind of talked about already. Some tentative numbers on the phase 2. I'm just going to say that that is really preliminary at this point. We really want to see what we get out of phase 1 as far as what we end up doing in the phase 2 design for this. The wet weather seasons obviously are going to have an impact in the buildability of this project, as well as the space we have down there. It's a very tight little space, and we're going to be working around weather. We're going to be working around ourselves, and overall the project construction window, we've added about 6 months to it at this point, so about a 30-month window in order to get the plant construction completely up and done, and then the process startup before the phase 1 is absolutely completed. And with that, any questions? And then I also can jump over to, in your packet, page number 183. There is a little more detailed wastewater treatment plant milestone planning spreadsheet there. And if you have any questions, we are all available to answer them.
I don't have any questions. Thank you very much for the update.
Thanks, Dobie. No questions.
Okay.
No questions.
Thank you.
One thing I noticed as part of this is that some of the levies were being made higher. Could you comment on that and how that fits into the overall plan?
Absolutely. So the overall plan, I'll just kind of flip to this right here. The plan is to get at least certainly the bulk of the work done at the wastewater treatment plant through the phase 1 design. And then what we've shared in discussions with preliminarily with the California Coastal Commission, and this is what is included in our environmental application. You're looking at a picture there of the wastewater treatment plant and the oxidation ponds. We have an area there in green that's referred to as the VE zone. That's basically the velocity zone where we can get a velocity wave traveling across the bay. We are proposing to raise that bay elevation to 14 feet, and the flood elevation currently out there is approximately 10 and 11 feet in some places. So we're looking at building in a buffer there of approximately 3 feet, and that's based upon the most recent models that FEMA did, that your council adopted. I think it was August of 17 or August of 16 or something, but that was a new standard. First time they'd really looked at the potential for true run-up areas there. So that's our proposal, is basically to create that, and that green line goes all the way around to the back corner there, and north is up on this. I'm kind of looking for my north. Oh, I see my north arrow there. So north is up on this clearly. That is the most credible probable storm that FEMA has identified in the most probable direction. That is where we've seen storm damage from the repairs we made in 2009 and 2010. And that's the entire area there that we'd like to buffet. On the back side there, you'll see in the light purple, that AE zone. That area there, again, being 12 foot is the flood, the 100-year, the 1% flood zone area. What we're proposing there is to raise that 2 feet above that area there, just for some more protection. And if we ever did have any type of catastrophic event, quite honestly. There would, one, be a way for water to get in and water to get out. And we feel that this is a good first step in the phase one of the project, as far as buffering ourselves from the current storm surge, kind of maximum credible storm event that we see that's going to happen with a 1% chance of happening.
Is there a potential tsunami impact also in addition to storm events?
Well, I'm not sure how much you've seen. There was a new tsunami study that came out. There was a hydrodynamic model that was put out by the state, and it's simply that. It's a hydrodynamic model at this point. It doesn't, the water surface is not flat. They show similar water run-ups to what we see in the old maps. Basically, the water is going to go up to Samoa, more or less. They are coming out with some probabilistic numbers that will actually have some elevation numbers on those. Those have not been released at the state level, and I think they're several months off here. But what I would say is, at least what I've kind of heard tentatively, is kind of the maximum credible wave. And this is completely unofficial, okay? But here's what I've heard: is that there is the thought that we could have the potential for possibly a 3 foot, at an absolute worst type event here. And we're adding a 3 foot buffer on by doing this, based upon the 100-year storm event. So we can't perfectly model it. We don't have the numbers to say this is what they say it's going to be. So this is the best solution that we have at this point, Councilmember Winkler. What I would say additionally is, once we know more information, once we know how sea level rise is occurring, and what all the models kind of predict for the future, it additionally allows us more opportunity to raise the levees as necessary.
What, for going to another disaster, what about potential earthquake impacts?
All the new structures are going to be designed to the maximum credible earthquake standards. I don't even want to tell you how incredibly robust the foundations are going to be in all the new buildings. They're incredible. You've seen some of the work I'm sure they did out on the Highway 101. The amount of piles we're going to have in here, basically it's just going to be one giant pile that everything that's new is being placed on. So in an earthquake event, all bets are off. Depends upon what level of earthquake you're talking about here. But we feel confident in all the new structures. We're going to be raising any new electrical connections up high enough so that we don't have fear of water intrusion into the new conduit runs, etc. But I really can't tell you anything more than that. If we have the super shaker or whatever it's called, the triple junction, I honestly, we don't design structures to live up to those. And the way we will handle that in the future, though, as you saw in there, is we are being required, as part of our regional, part of our board permit, is to kind of come up with an emergency management plan. And that is one of the requirements we're going to be doing. So we will work through some of those scenarios and working towards how much time will it take us to get things up and running? What will we do if the headworks were no longer functioning? Where can we pump and control sewage from in various other areas of the city? So while I can't say we're building something, because nobody can. You can't build something that's going to be earthquake proof, quite honestly. Especially with earth and levee system like what we have here and throughout 99% of the bay. But what we will have is a very solid plan that does need to be approved as part of our NPDES permit to enable us to get the plant up and running as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments or questions from council? Correct. Thank you, Dobie.
Absolutely.
So next is other council and staff reports. So do we have any other reports from staff, Karen?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, I thought there's a lot going on in the world that is challenging, so I thought I'd just do a couple of good updates tonight. The first is, if you can see this, the city received another annual award from what's called the Beacon Awards, Spotlight Award for our 6% reduction in community greenhouse gases this year. So congratulations to the council and our Environmental Services Department for the work that they do to continue to reduce our carbon footprint. Also, thanks to Vice Mayor Pitino, who was at the awards ceremony as our league representative last week. And it's always fun to start with A in Arcata because we get to go first. So in your packets, I will put the recap of our platinum level award winning activities in the city of Arcata. They made us a full glossy brochure of a lot of the good things that we're doing. So I'll make sure that you each get a copy of that. And then my second piece of good news tonight is that the Swanner Forest acquisition, the 113 acres acquisition, did close escrow. It's actually been a couple of weeks, but between our meetings here. So really congratulations to the council, Director Andre, and the community for expansion of our community forest. And that's all I have tonight.
Right. Other staff reports. So Councilmember Pereira.
It's just a brief update for Humboldt Waste Management Authority and the work that's being done on CRV buyback. Our staff is working with our legislative representatives and with CalRecycle to find a path forward. It looks like there might be a pilot program through CalRecycle. They're doing grants that we might be eligible for, but we would need to obviously have a plan in place, some sort of regional plan in place in order to move that forward. So every week, every day, it's being worked on. So at our next meeting, I'm sure I'll have an update on that. But right now, it's still a work in progress. I think Las Coast Outpost did a good article covering the HWMA report to the Board of Supervisors. So you can also use that as a reference point. But I think the bottom line for folks to know is that there's not going to be a quick fix on this, given the issues with CRV buyback across the state. But folks are working on it diligently. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Watson.
Don't have anything to report tonight. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pitino.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
I attended the last presentation in the SHOT series on offshore wind. That's interesting. They're really going into depth. And there are many reports that are available online for people who are interested. And it's exciting long-term prospect for this county. And I have nothing further. We are adjourned.